Hello,
Hi.
welcome to episode 3 of That'll Be The Tism.
Mm.
This is the third fortnight we've consecutively filmed a podcast, which is impressive, I think.
Mm.
I'm proud.
Yes.
Yeah. The bank holidays, I think, have probably made it easier.
Yeah. We need more of those.
We definitely need more of those. But then also, everything else that's been going on has probably made it more challenging. So maybe when things calm down a bit, it might just be all right. We might just be able to find the time every fortnight, and that'll be good.
Yeah, I think it'll get easier, won't it?
Yeah.
It's currently a bit of a marathon. Not the filming's all right, isn't it? Because it's just talking, but the editing and then all of the getting it in places in readiness is um
Yeah, we'll get better at it though.
marathon.
Bear
Yes.
with us, people that are listening and watching. We are,
Mm.
it is a learning curve,
Mm.
as they say.
Yeah. Hopefully this one won't be an hour and a half. It wasn't an hour and a half for our listeners and viewers, but it was an hour and a half for us.
It was an hour and 27 minutes something, and we cropped it to
Mm.
53. But we lost track of time completely, didn't we? And we're going to pay more attention to the timings. Well, Claire is going to pay more attention to the timings because
I'm already
I'm, you're already what? Have you forgotten?
I've already forgotten, yeah.
Well, that's fine though, because at least you'll know now. If I
Time.
tried to time it, my timer would just be going off behind my computer and I just wouldn't even know. I
No.
wouldn't notice. I don't see it. Time isn't something that I have control over in any way, shape, or form. So how are you, Claire?
I think probably similarly to you, a bit worn out because we've had your birthday event, which is probably one of the first events that I've had since the last birthday event two
Oh,
years
2 years
ago.
ago. Yeah.
Someone asked me how I was this morning, and I'm like, I'm still recovering. And I'm like, not alcohol. Alcohol was not the problem. Peopling was the problem, and being where I needed to be.
Yeah.
But it was good, wasn't it?
It was mint.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice. I've had a week of birthday. When we get into hyperfocus of the week, that's my hyperfocus of the week has been my birthday, which has been nice.
Mm.
But on Friday night, there was 10 of us cramped into a little karaoke room for 2 hours, and it was very hot. It was
Mm.
very hot. We had some very nice food beforehand. It was fun. It was nice to see everybody. And I
Mm.
have been sent a loyalty card, so I get points now for going. So
Mm.
if I go so many times, then I get money off, which is always a nice bonus to have to gamify things. We like to gamify things.
Yeah, but maybe if you go again, we'll have a bigger room because I'm reasonably sure I was sat on one of our friends' laps at one point, and that was not intentional.
No, but
Not seeing him for like 2 years was, you know,
just sat on his knee for a bit.
hello again. Nice to see you again. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it
What
was
was
good. Lots of Hamilton.
mm,
We did lots of Hamilton, and we didn't do too bad. I thought we did all right at the Hamilton.
the last one was better than the first one. I
Was
realized I didn't know a
intense.
lot of the words. It was, yes.
My
I don't
shot was my face started exploding towards the end because I don't think I'd breathed, which is a problem. But I had to take my glasses off because my eyes were watering and I couldn't see the screen.
I think it's safe to say neither of us are rappers.
No.
Uh,
So it's been an intense time. And
mm,
we're going to talk later in the podcast about the trait of the week, which is going to be recharge time. So we'll talk about
mm.
that later because that's been the most fitting thing with all the hecticness of the week and our hyperfocus of the week we're talking about. Shall we just go into it?
Yeah, the planning aspect of the birthday and yeah.
Yeah, it's been a challenge to plan. It was a new place. We had 10 people and 3 venues, 10 people all arriving at different times from different directions. And I like to make sure that everybody else has a good time. And that is always my priority when I'm like organizing stuff. And so I needed it to run smoothly. And it was quite, because it was a new place where we went for karaoke. We've been going to the same place for karaoke for the last 15, 16 years. But this was a new place because it was slightly cheaper and it also sold ramen, which is a definite bonus.
Yes.
So because it was a new place, I was basically just panicking that it was a disaster and it wasn't a good idea until like 3 or 4 days beforehand when I actually booked it. And then waiting for confirmation of what we could do beforehand and the timings and who was coming and who wasn't coming, so that I could make sure we had a pub that was in walking distance. But once we were in the pub, it ran reasonably smoothly, didn't it?
Yeah.
Apart from the time that I had left, I decided to book, because you had to book the meal and then the karaoke separately at the venue. And so I'd booked the meal for 7:30 and then the karaoke from 8:30, because in my head, 1 hour is plenty of time to arrive, get seated, for everyone to pick their food, to order the food, for the food to be cooked, and to eat the food. An hour was totally sufficient. That's time blindness at play there.
That'll be the time blindness, was
Yeah.
what I was just about to say.
But they were very good about it and they postponed it and it was fine. And people stayed until they had to run for trains. And that's a nice, reassuring thing as well, because I have decided after Friday that I am officially not drinking. I am officially not drinking, apart from maybe the odd cocktail. But it's not worth it because my mental health after drinking is just shot. I get very paranoid. And
Really?
yeah, Friday night when we got back to the hotel room, I was an absolute wreck. I was just sat there like everyone had a shit time and they all hate me now for quite a while. And it's all right. It's just, I know that logically it's not true. And with all the coping strategies I've got, I know how to talk myself out of that. But when I've been drinking, no, no chance.
It's
Absolutely no
the
chance.
it's when you're on your own, you haven't got that reassurance to ask people as well into it, and
Oh,
you
I
finally
know.
got time to like process what's just happened. That you think, well, you. It's like we said last week with the black and white thinking.
Yeah,
That if I've got one piece of evidence that everybody had a rubbish time, then they had a rubbish time. I don't necessarily think about all the like good bits and
yeah.
like you say, the fact that everybody stayed until the end.
That was
Oh, well,
pointed out to me by my
yeah.
partner, thankfully, who was there in the room with me. But I know that it's the alcohol. And every now and then I just need a reminder from life to remind me why I don't really drink very much anymore. And he just said to me, look, literally everyone stayed until they had a bus to catch or a train to catch, and then they had to run across town to get to that bus or train. So, they wouldn't have done that. But I didn't have any proof that people hadn't had a good time, apart from the fact that I had a good time. So I suppose this is relevant a bit for the main segment that we're going to do in a bit. But because I like genuinely had the best time, automatically in my mind means that everyone else has had a rubbish time, because
Hmm.
that's just the way that my brain works. I'm not used to prioritizing my own enjoyment, and I sang lots.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Karaoke is one of my safe places and happy times. So
Mm.
it's been an interesting couple of days to process.
I
No,
think it's the whole thing of it into being sociable is really difficult for us. I mean, I always find that it's nice once you're doing it and you enjoy it when you're doing it.
yeah,
But the run up to it and sometimes the after bit is the tough part because beforehand you worrying that you're not going to be where you need to be at the right time. Like, and my way around that is my planning. Like, I knew exactly what train I needed to be on what time. I'd made sure that I had a seat reservation. I'd made sure I knew what bus I needed to get on to get to the hotel, what time I could get into the hotel, what time I was meeting you, that sort of thing. And there's so much that you can plan to reassure yourself, but you can't necessarily plan the actual night to a T. And you wouldn't want to because planning everything's not the fun bit. It's these things just happening.
mm,
But for us, we're like, no, we want to plan the fun because then we know that the fun will happen as the fun should happen.
yeah,
And afterwards, you're like, was the fun?
Was the fun bit fun for everyone, or was it just fun for me?
It's a big build up to then afterwards. Like there's really just nothing afterwards, is there, except your own thoughts and your own feelings of like, oh my God, did I really say that to that person? And the overanalyzing afterwards that you do where you sort of start talking yourself out of the fact that it was all right.
Should I have sang the Wombles, and did I sing the right Wombles song was a question. Because I know that I got
You picked the right Wombles song for you, but it wasn't the Wombles song that someone else was expecting. Yeah, but like, is anyone ever expecting the Wombles at karaoke? I would argue not unless you're going to karaoke with Emma.
I always like do a few like jokey searches on the app to laugh at myself. Because, in an ideal world, One Blue Merry Christmas would have been on there, which is the best Christmas song that there is in existence, for a fact. And it wasn't. I've never seen the Wombles on a karaoke system before. So when we went to this new place, which has an app, which I could look at before, which is how I knew there was Hamilton before we went as well, which I got excited about. There was no Mr. Blobby on the app. I did check, but there was the Wombles.
Maybe we can be sponsored by the Wombles.
Maybe we could be. We're not currently sponsored by the Wombles.
No, but if they're listening,
From Bulgaria, if you're out there,
you
just
can make good use of the things that you find
hit
in
us
this
up.
podcast.
Yeah, we're very useful. We can
Hit
be.
us up, love you long time.
Yeah.
So that's the birthday in a nutshell. And now it is time for the main section,
Main
right?
section, Mave time. Are you ready, Claire? Are you
It's 11.
ready, listeners? Right, that'll do.
I woke the dog up.
I think I did 11 seconds this time, so it might just be a fraction too long, so apologies. My arms were above my head when I should have been pressing stop.
I was trying to stop the dog falling off my legs. She's just like, I didn't say that Bernie's in this podcast, my dog, did I? It's a first podcast. And that if you are watching on YouTube and you see me looking like I'm stroking my legs, it is in fact a tiny dog that's there and not me doing anything I shouldn't be doing, so don't report us. Thanks.
Okay, so our main section this week
Yes.
is going to be about masking. Ooh.
Do we explain the reason that we've chosen this one?
It was another listener request, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It's nice. It's nice to get them. It's the third podcast and the second listener request main segment.
Yeah, so thank you very much, listeners, for giving us things to talk about and focusing our minds on what this podcast is, because that's helpful. So they said that they're wondering what masking can be and whether there might be some stuff that people don't realise that they're doing.
Oh, almost definitely.
That's something that I'm interested in as well, because it's not until like someone points out to you what masking is that you're like, oh yeah, I do that. Oh yeah, I do that. Yep. Yeah, I do that.
It's really difficult because especially, and I know there was a thing that you shared with me the other day about someone said that it's about being authentically you yourself. Being autistic is about being authentically yourself. Well, it's not. It's a neurotype, but often, especially late diagnosed autistic people, find it very difficult to be authentically themselves in public, which is what masking is. And it's often very, very unconscious. It's not like you go out and you make a decision to pretend. We automatically mirror people because we try to fit in. It's just trying to fit in essentially. And you go out with somebody and you are trying to be the person that you think that they want you to be, which oftentimes, especially if you're uncomfortable with who you are and your self-confidence is very low, which is common in autistic and ADHD adults, you will basically just be them.
Yeah.
I know from personal experience a lot of my music taste because I have an incredibly varied music taste. So as I was learning music, as I was growing up, a friend would introduce a band to me, and when I was with that person, that would be my favorite band, you know.
Yes.
And that was how it was. And it's the same with like TV, films, all sorts, because I'm quite
Quite
easy to
easy to
please,
influence.
quite easy to please. And I just kind of have always followed. I've always followed what the other person, if I've been in a relationship or in most of my friendships, I've mainly followed what the other person has
Mm.
liked, especially if you sort of hang around with people that have strong opinions about different things. It makes it a lot easier sometimes to
Yeah.
just, yep, I'll go with that, I'll go with that. And it is stuff that I like,
Mm.
but wouldn't necessarily be my choice in the moment. But because I'm with that person, we are going all in on this because then that person will have something in common with me, and therefore,
Yeah, it's
um,
finding a sort of making a common interest is in it because then it's easier to be able to talk about that common interest and easier to be sociable with that person than it would be if you did it. You can just talk about it till cows come home, really, can't you?
yeah. But a lot of people panic. People say, but if all of my time I'm socializing is masking, who am I? There's like a whole identity thing because it's like, how do I know I'm not pretending? I'm like, well, if you're at home in your own private space and there's nobody there and you like something, then you like it, don't you? And masking isn't about pretending to like things you don't like. It's just about, I mean, I know you've mentioned the um, accents thing, and you know, it.
Yeah, I sort of always tell the story of being at work and I'd walked into a room full of people from Ireland that had come over for a couple of days and I had to meet them and show them what they needed to do and everything. And I walked in and I was talking to them and obviously I'd walked in and I was really nervous because social situations. And I walked out and my colleague was like, you do realise you were doing a perfect like Northern Irish accent throughout the entirety of that meeting. And I was like, oh, that's really embarrassing. But I was looking into it and it's called the chameleon effect. And that's what you said to me about masking. It's very much you're being a chameleon, you're sort of adapting to your environment to try and make it the most comfortable that you can in that
In that
environment.
moment.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of autistic people can seem like they're being false, I guess, or they're being very different in different groups of people. So you will have somebody who has drinking buddies and then maybe gaming buddies and maybe like gig buddies, you know, I like different groups. Like with kids, you see it at a child might be different in school to how they are at like clubs or brownies or whatever they go to outside of school, and then they might be different again at home. And it's a subconscious thing where we just try to blend in, not consciously, but automatically just sense what is needed in that social
Mm.
situation and just melt into the background as much as we can. I mean, it's not an every autistic person thing because some autistic people are unable to mask and are just who
Or
they are.
they're comfortable not doing it. That's the other thing to say. It's not a you are autistic, so you have to be high masking all of the time.
No,
Because you might have found a situation in your life where you haven't needed to do that, or whether where you're comfortable with showing those aspects of yourself.
but also some autistic people aren't able to or don't realize,
Mm,
don't have the social awareness
mm,
to be able to mask. You need to have the awareness of what society expects and have probably be a higher empathy kind of. If you're not able to read a situation, which is an autistic trait, then you wouldn't know that the way that you are behaving, even if it is authentically yourself, you wouldn't understand that that is potentially going to make you stand out. See, a lot of us feel like we stand out, but we don't actually because we're masking. Whereas some autistic people can't or don't realize that they do stand out because to them, they just are who they are. And I guess going back to that tweet that we spoke about the other week, is that's the being autistic is being so authentically yourself that other people think you're
Really interesting or like terrifying.
Yes.
I think that's what the words were.
Yeah. Some autistic people don't have the awareness that that is happening. And generally, either you have the awareness and you mask, like kind of subconsciously mask, until you learn about it. A lot of it is about self-acceptance, because once you can accept that it's okay to be how you are and it's okay to ask for the things that you need, then generally the mask starts to slip. And once it starts to slip, it can be very, very challenging, because once you become aware you're doing it, you're like, no, I don't need to mask. And once you've accepted that you don't need to mask, it becomes more difficult to mask. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it becomes more difficult, but also sometimes it's not as necessary, I think. Like, I would say that probably I mask a lot less now than I did prior to my diagnosis, purely because I can say that this is, I'm anxious about this. I'm sort of hyper focusing on this negative thing that's happened, and be able to say this is what's happening now and look for a solution rather than just pretending that it's not happening.
Yeah.
So in that way, unmasking is probably healthier than.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's a lot
But
healthier for
masking
us, definitely.
it's a coping strategy, isn't it? It's a way of adapting your. This is what I think anyway. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's a way of your brain, your brain's not built for this world, so you're trying to fit into a world where it's not made for you. There are ways to get you over those hills that are more massive than they would be for a neurotypical person. Not that neurotypical people don't have to try as hard, but the world is built for them, so they don't necessarily need all those coping strategies
Yeah.
that we have.
I mean, everybody, this is the thing, is that it's one of the things that people sometimes say, oh, well, I'm a little bit autistic because sometimes I do things that I don't want to do. Well, yeah, that's not what masking is. It's not doing things that you don't want to do. That's in life. Everyone has to do things they don't want to do. But everybody kind of puts on a face sometimes to fit in or to be polite, or, when you're in an awkward situation, everybody in the human race, pretends sometimes and isn't 100% authentically themselves sometimes. But as a coping strategy, masking is more about making the space safe, because it's not a safe. It doesn't feel safe otherwise. And that's the world not being built
Yeah.
for neurodivergent brains, is that we don't necessarily feel safe to be ourselves. It's not about not knowing who we are all of the time. It's about not feeling safe in that environment to say no, or say, actually, I would rather do this, or, rather than just following on from what other people suggest or want. I mean, I know for a lot of my life, I didn't make any decisions at home. I mean, when I've lived with people, when I lived on my own, obviously I did, but I've been very much the follower. And I mean, I know my ex-husband still doesn't quite understand that I don't like all of the things that I watched or did, or, when we were together, because it didn't matter that I wasn't interested. I was just happy to poodle along and not unsettle the dynamic, because then it was a safer space to be in. Whereas now I try a lot harder since I've realised that I did that. I never thought about it. I never thought about
It's
how. you know, you
people
don't
pleasing,
realise.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's because it's easy
this
to
is
do.
what this person wants,
Mm.
and that's easier than asking for what I want, or thinking about, even sometimes thinking about what you want, because
Yeah,
sometimes that's difficult to know what you want to do. So it's easier to just let somebody else make that decision for you. And
right.
then at least you know that they're happy and that you've done what you needed to do for them, and you worry about it a bit less because you're like, well, at least, yeah.
Even like, what do you want for tea? What do you want for tea? I don't know. The more overwhelmed I am,
Mm.
the less likely I am to be able to make a choice about what food we eat or what TV program we watch, you know. In like my household, we go towards decision with is there anything you definitely don't want? Because if you can eliminate the things that you both don't want, then sometimes it makes it easier to settle on something that you do, because it's often easier to say what we don't want than it is to say what we do want.
Yeah, it's a choice, and every choice needs to be analysed and
Yeah.
a thought about, and do what it is. Is it what, it's not decision
Yeah, yeah.
paralysis.
Decision paralysis.
Yeah, that you just like, I know I need to make a decision, but what if I do it and it's not the right one? Or what if I do this and this happens? And
Yeah.
that, although it sounds like that is a ridiculous thing to think about what you're having for your tea, sometimes that's just what happens. And especially if your brain's already done from all
Yeah.
the other things that it's had to think about that day, and needs to be charged, the last thing you want to do is to try and make another decision about something as simple as what you're having for your
Go
tea.
downstairs after a day at work and just be like, right, so I have choices now. I'd
Yeah.
rather just not have choices now.
And being able to say that to somebody, if you're not able to say that to somebody, or you pretend that you can make those choices again, that's still a masking, isn't it? It's a pretending that you're okay with making decisions when in actual fact you're just doing it because that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't happen and nothing gets anywhere. But that doesn't mean that there's so much to it, really, and there's more than we can cover in a 20-minute segment about masking. But anything that you would do to sort of make it easier to get along in life, would you say, to make it easier to fit in and easier sometimes not to even be perceived?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a personality when I was in my teens. I just kind of blended into the background as much as possible, was as invisible as physically possible, because that was the safest place for me to be.
Mm.
It's the safest way for me to be. And I carried on with that through adulthood, unless I'd been drinking generally. Um, that was the only time that the mask sort of slipped, until I found out about neurodivergence and found out about what masking was. And then I I have let myself be authentically me in
Mm-hmm.
a lot more situations, and I've been a lot more honest about my struggles, and I've been a lot more open about the things that I like. And I mean, I start all of my webinars like telling people that I like karaoke and I like Lego and I like jigsaws, was something that I've always loved jigsaws, but I would have never told my school friends that I love jigsaws, because
No.
what self-respecting teenage girl goes home on a night and does a jigsaw? But that was my brain time. That was my, I could just sit in my bedroom and do my jigsaw and let my brain just go off and do its thing and process the day. Often talking out loud to myself to process verbally, and with my music on, with the same songs on repeat generally. But my jigsaw was a huge part of it, and I never would have ever been honest with that. And I mean, I know when I met my partner now and went to his house, and one of the first things he showed me was a 5,000 piece jigsaw that he bought when he got made redundant. And it wouldn't fit anywhere in his house. He couldn't make it anywhere in his house because he had nowhere in his house that was big enough to put a 5,000 piece jigsaw. Anyway, I was just like, I've met somebody who has just literally, I mean, I went to his house and he showed me like so many of his nerdy things that I absolutely loved, but I'd never shown anyone that side of myself really. because I never thought it fit anywhere. So to meet somebody that I could show my excitement about jigsaws, and we did the 5,000 piece jigsaw in my attic, and it was amazing. And I remember when I suggested it to him, we were a few months into the relationship, and I was comfortable enough to say, right, okay, since I first went to your house, I've been wanting to suggest this, and can we do that 5,000 piece jigsaw in my loft, please? Because I very much want to help you with that. And every piece of the jigsaw is a different color, and it was just amazing. It was an amazing project to do. It took us months to do it, and it was just awesome. But that was a properly unmasking in a relationship for me for probably the first time in a lot of years.
Well, it goes back to, though, doesn't it, why we, even if we don't know that we're neurodivergent yet, gravitate towards other people that are now neurodivergent, because they are the sort of people that you can have like the weird conversations with. You can share hyperfixations with. Whereas the majority of people in life, unless you know them particularly well, you're not going to start talking about a 5,000 piece jigsaw with them, are you? Because you're going to be thinking, well, they're just going to think I'm weird if I say that I like doing jigsaws.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to talk about it and go with it and not feel ashamed of liking the things that I like. And without knowing about neurodivergence and autism specifically for special interests, then I don't know if I would have ever been comfortable talking about that stuff. I don't know if I would have ever been able to accept it about myself. Knowing that it was okay to like something that a lot of people don't like so much, because it feels risky.
Is hard.
Yeah. So yeah, that's masking. I think that's an introduction to masking.
Yes. And also, as with everything, it's not like autism bingo. If it is not something that you experience, that doesn't mean that you aren't autistic. If you do mask, it doesn't mean that you are autistic. But generally, if you recognize something in our podcasts or in the traits list that you shared last week that you think, I do that, and you start thinking about it, and you know that that thing impacts your life, it's not just a passing thing. Like you were saying, there's people that say everybody's a little bit autistic. If it hasn't significant impact on your life, that trait, or the the things that you recognize and the struggles that you have, that's the difference.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's a lot of traits that neurotypical people also present with. There's a lot of autistic and ADHD traits that are present in everybody in the human race. That's the whole point with the human race being neurodiverse. But it's, yeah, as Claire just said, it's if you have a significant number of traits that are impacting you on a daily basis and making a difference to your life, then it's okay to say that you're neurodivergent, and that's that. But yeah, it's yeah, masking does not mean that you're fake and that you're a fraud, and that it's not doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you're trying to stay safe, and to know and to learn that you are safe to be who you are, and to find spaces that you are safe to be who you are, and to openly unmask and let that guard down is really valuable. So it's okay for it to be a learning journey and a long process towards unmasking, but it's worth persevering with, I think, is probably how I would close that segment, because it's
Section,
whatever they are.
whatever
We
it is.
change, don't we, between the two?
Yes. I've written main section, but I also say main segment.
Yeah. It's one of
So,
the both. Means the same thing essentially, doesn't it?
yes. Trait of the week.
Okay. Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge time. I didn't realise that recharge time was not something that everybody did. I think I mentioned this in the first episode,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize until I found out about autism and properly started relating to autistic traits that not everybody in the world needs to have downtime after socializing and after work and generally after any kind of interaction with other people at all. I thought that that was something that everybody needed, but it is an autistic trait.
Mhm.
Um, and it's one of the lesser spoken about ones. And so the trait of the week this week is recharge time because I haven't given myself any. It's been my birthday and we've been away and we socialized on Tuesday and then I worked on Wednesday and then my son was homesick on Thursday and then I was out socializing on Friday night and during the day on Friday and then I went to my mum's on Sunday and on Saturday I was stressed out because of childcare things. And now it is Monday and I am recording a podcast. And it's great and I love talking to Claire. But I've had an hour and a half or so before since getting home from mum's before recording. And I have a week full of meetings. And I know that I need to give myself some recharge time this evening because otherwise, by the end of the week, I will probably be burnt out. And recharge time doesn't mean that you've had a shit time. I think a lot of people assume that you only have to recover from something if it's been a negative experience, but that's really not true.
No, it's sort of the social battery, isn't it? Like you've got some people, they thrive off socializing and it recharges them to be able to see people. And it's not that we don't enjoy socializing, it's just that it doesn't recharge us to do that. It takes energy to mask, to not that we have to do it so much around each other, but to be thinking about the different parts of the situation and the plans and all that sort of thing, like what we're going to sing next, what we're going to have
It's
to,
an important choice.
what we're going to have to eat on a menu full of things, and it's a lot. And then afterwards, although you know that you've enjoyed it and you were with, say, people, it's not necessarily, you don't, you probably could do without talking to anybody for quite a substantial amount of time afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult because it can sound to people that don't get it, it can sound quite offensive to say, I'm peopled out.
Mm-hmm.
And the phrase peopled out is such a bizarre phrase, but when people understand, when you get what people are talking about when they say, "Oh, I'm out peopled," and it's this whole spoon theory thing as well, isn't it? Is that you've only got so much energy, and there's so many aspects to an event and to going out and to socializing, and because we have generally planned out and prepared and gone through multiple scenarios and conversations with each person in each situation before we go somewhere, so that we are as prepared as physically
Mm-hmm.
possible. That all takes energy. So you're already like, when you go out, you're like, right, my energy is here already. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're out and it's great and it's a lot of fun, but it can be really intense. And then crash happens. I mean, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's and it's really, really important to give yourself that recharge time and to not get frustrated because so many people are like, oh my God, I shouldn't need to. Especially if it's like going food shopping, for example, is something that people can need time to recover from. Like if you're somebody that goes food shopping on a weekly basis, you go to the food shop, you come home and you're like, oh my God, and it's like,
And
how
that,
can I possibly need to sit and recover from spending half an hour in a supermarket?
mm,
Supermarkets are intense places.
I think that's sort of one of the things that I've reflected on, especially like knowing what I know now, is that like you start cutting out those things as well to just be able to do what you need to do. In the past, I used to work in a call center, and I used to be talking to people all day, and I used to come home and I used to say to my husband, I can't speak to you. And luckily he understood that. But if I had had to speak to him as well or to go shopping on the way home, there's not a lot of time left to be able to just reboot yourself and recharge. Whereas now, one of the things that I've recognised in this job that I'm in now is that I spend the majority of my time alone. So A, that helps with like my productivity and that sort of thing. But B, I've not spent most of my day talking. Don't get me wrong, I still talk to people. Um, but it's at a more manageable level. Um, and I do have more time for that sort of thing, but I have knowingly cut out things like shopping that I will now do online because I know that's a spoon that I don't have to use.
Yeah, that's one of the things that people can need recharging from. And just as an aside, quickly, because I know we're like over time, but there's just two more things I wanted to say about recharge time. One of them is children really screw up our recharge time. And you don't realize, a lot of people realize that they're autistic after children because we had all of the time in the world before. Like we could just make time to recharge. And then you have a child and there is no time. There is just no time. And so it makes it incredibly difficult to just leave those spaces in your schedule that just
Mm.
automatically have always been there all your life because there's a small human climbing on your head. And it is really, really one of the biggest challenges for parenting is finding recharge time. And it is really, really important to do anything you can to find that recharge time because you will find it makes all of the time, it will make all of the time easier. And the other thing I wanted to say, I have forgotten.
Brilliant. So tune into our next episode to find out.
I have forgotten the other thing. The frustration, the frustration.
The
Yes.
frustration of needing it sometimes and thinking I've got this thing to do and why can't I just do it? I said to my husband yesterday actually because I wasn't well yesterday and I was like, why does this always happen? And he said, when you used to work, I used to work 3 12-hour shifts and then 3 shifts off. And I used to spend those 3 shifts off in bed. And yesterday felt very similar to that. And he said, it's because you've done a lot that you don't usually do and it's taking it out of you and you need this day to rest. And I'm like, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Fetch me a cup of tea.
Why does this always happen? That'll be the tism.
Yes. But it's another one of those oh my God moments, isn't it? That you just think, how have I got to 39 years old?
What?
How have I like
What?
held down a job for this? And that's why it's so difficult. And this is a tangent, isn't it? But jobs and things take a lot of your social battery, and that is why a lot of um, neurodivergent people struggle to keep jobs
Yeah.
because it's so much more. It's so much more difficult for neurodivergent people to do
Yeah.
certain jobs.
And most
Mainly,
jobs have
mm,
more a reasonable amount of social interaction, and a lot of neurodivergent people generally try to shy away from that or mask through it.
mm,
And shying away from it obviously can make you feel isolated in an office, and masking is exhausting. And finding that balance is just really challenging. In my old job, I was always very quiet. I mean, I talk because I can't stop talking because I verbal process a lot. But there was a few work do's where people were like, "Oh, it was nice to see you come out of your shell a bit when I'd had a few drinks." And I didn't realize that I wasn't like that all the time because it was such a subconscious thing. But I just was very quiet. I tried to not stand out. I tried to get work done.
Either
Apart
that,
from,
you analyze every social interaction that you
yeah,
have. Just said something and was that weird, or should I have said that, or do they now think this about me? Whereas I don't think that you realise until you're speaking to people that that's not something that everybody does. And of course, that then means that you need more time to recharge after all those experiences, because that has taken a lot more energy for you than it would do for a person that didn't need to do that.
yeah. And oversharing as well as a thing. Not having a filter. That can be another thing we can talk about another week.
Yes.
Not being filtered. But yeah, I think that's enough, isn't it?
I reckon so. Is that how we're going to end all the podcast? I think that's enough now.
I think we've talked. I mean, we can keep going off on tangents if you
No,
want.
of course. No. We don't need to. It was just. It's a very, very tism way to end the
That'll
conversation.
do, I think.
That'll do. I've had enough
Yeah,
now.
I think we're done.
Maybe that should be the new ending of all of our podcasts. That's enough now.
That's
Bye.
enough, right? Thank you for listening,
Thank you.
everybody, and watching or whatever you have done. As always, you can find us at our link tree, which is linktr.ee/that'll be the tism. And you can email us at that'llbethetism@gmail.com, and you can find us on social media if you search for That'll Be The Tism. And please follow us and like us and subscribe to us, because the subscribers going up really does make our lives more positive.
It's nice to know that people are listening and that people find it interesting. And thank you to those people who have already been in touch to give us the ideas of things that they'd like to hear in the podcast. We really like that. That's really
Can I
helpful.
just say one thing though that we're not going to do?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to throw cheese at any autistic people.
No, we are not. And the person who gave us that suggestion will know
Yeah.
that's come from him. And we're very sorry we haven't talked about the rest of your suggestions in this podcast, but perhaps in a future one. So do keep listening. No sowing cheese at autistic people. A, because that's a waste of good cheese.
It is. Cheese is
And B,
important.
because we are an inclusive podcast and
Approve of violence.
cheese-based violence.
Cheese-based violence is not okay. No violence is okay. Cheese-based violence is not only not okay, but it's also wasteful of quality cheese, or even shit cheese, to be fair.
Even cheese slices.
Yeah, we're not throwing any cheese. Sorry, mate. We're not.
Sorry about it. And if that makes you unsubscribe, then
so be it.
Bye. I don't mean that. Please continue to be subscribed. Thank you.
It is. We will lose a listener over this if we have to, but we would rather not. But we're definitely not going to throw cheese at people, though, are we?
I mean, I don't want to lose the listener or any listeners, but I just
no cheese throwing.
Fundamentally disagree with the use of cheese as a weapon.
Fundamentally, it's just not
And
right.
there is the name of the podcast. Cheese as a weapon.
Cheese as a weapon. If the script doesn't have any typos for us, then cheese as a weapon it will be. But we'll see what it throws at us today. Oh, we didn't explain the name. Shall we quickly explain last time's name?
It was Stick on Little Eggs, wasn't it? And that was
Stick on Little Eggs. It was from the Easter egg hunt.
Stick on Little Eggs.
Stick it on little eggs, or stick them on little eggs, is what we said about my post-it notes when I was talking about the Easter egg hunt. So that was last time's.
Yes.
We need to remember to do that at the beginning next time.
Yeah, but
It might keep people listening, because they might just listen all the way through just to find out what the last name came from.
However long this is.
People have nothing better to do with their time. So thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. You've been a great laugh.
That's fair.
And my old manager used to say it to me all the time, and I choose to believe that she did, in fact, think that I was a great laugh.
I think she was, because you are. I think so. And that if I think, that means it has to be a fact.
Yes.
Right.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. We will be back in a fortnight. Bye.
Bye.